I had a purpose before everybody had an opinion.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out.
You want Philly?
Chase Utley, you are the man.
You come out backyard and you try to start something, you always get your butt kicked.
The prayers have been answered.
How about those Eagles, baby?
And Rio Muto can run for days.
Can you feel what's about to happen on this field, man?
A perfect game. Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Philly Talk. Another week has passed. Games have been played. Starting off quickly with the NFL. We saw some different various upsets. We also saw, games expected to go the way they went. The Niners beat up on the Giants, which was expected, 30-12. The Colts snuck out a quick one on the Ravens, 22-19. Very surprised by that one, especially considering the Colts did not have Anthony Richardson for that one, but they sneaked past. The Browns blew out the Titans 27-3. The Lions blew out the Falcons 20-6. Kind of surprised by that one. It's no disrespect to the lad, but yeah, the Falcons really do need to find a different quarterback. I don't think Desmond Ridder is that guy for them. The Lions looking good. Still my lock for probably the winners of the NFC North. I mean, there's the Vikings, but they've been struggling, and, I don't see how they fix that offensive line issue, considering it's the whole line. It's not like one singular position that they're struggling with. Speaking of the NFC North, the Packers beat the Saints in a close one, 18-17. Shout out J-Love. That's my fantasy quarterback right now. 25 points for me. He's been real consistent. But yeah, real good game from there. Packers and Lions both have the same record, so who knows? J-Love could be the guy for the Packers. And just how crazy lucky would it be that the Packers lucked their way into three great back-to-back quarterbacks, Imagine being able to say, of course it's too early to tell. It's only 3 games, but, imagine if J-Love turns out to be real good. Imagine being able to say, oh, yeah, we had Brett Favre for all these years, and we didn't have to go through no, rebuilding period of, trying to find our next franchise quarterback, because here's Aaron Rodgers, and then Aaron Rodgers leaves, and you're thinking, oh, man, they're probably going to have to go into rebuild. They're going to need to find another quarterback for them. And then here comes Jordan Love after sitting, a year or 2 under Aaron Rodgers at this point. Comes in, balls out. It's pretty crazy. That's crazy luck to me, honestly. The Texans blew out the Jaguars 37-17. I ended up dropping Trevor Lawrence right before this game in favor of Jordan Love. And especially because, I'm a big stats guy when it comes to football. I was looking into it. I'm like, Trevor Lawrence has always struggled against the Texans, and it's crazy to think because the Texans have been pretty bad, but it's he's always struggled. And, he had a decent performance this game, 279 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but Texans just come out on top, Nothing much more the Jags could have really done. I mean, you look at their player stats and you're like, oh, they did pretty good, but, C.J. Stroud, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. Running, I mean, it was pretty equal when you look at the box score, but yeah, just the Texans got the better of them. Glad that I didn't try and start T-Law in that game. Speaking of wanting to start players in a game, the Dolphins beating the Broncos 70-20. Absolutely insane game. So crazy. They could have gone for the record, but they chose not to. And even with that, the Dolphins are still catching flack from owners and different people in the league about them running up the score. But then you look at it, they put their backups in. They were just simply running the ball. It wasn't like they were just constantly throwing to Tyreek Hill and, stuff like that. It was they were just trying to kill the rest of the game out, and yet they're still being accused of running up the score. And it's I don't know. That's the one thing that will always annoy me about sports, whether it's football, soccer, baseball, basketball, is the whole notion of unwritten rules is just so stupid and baffling to me. to me, it's like you don't want 70 points dropped on your head, then do better next time, you know? I don't understand the notion of getting mad at another team for beating you, you know? That's on you and your team for doing terrible, you know? But anyways, crazy game there. The Chargers snuck out a win 28-24 versus the Vikings. Like I said, the Vikings are just really struggling as of late. The Chargers too, this is barely their first win. They're 1-2. It was a crazy back and forth game, but yeah, just Vikings have really been struggling. Kirk had an interception. I don't know if any of their players had fumbles, but yeah, it's like the turnover issue has been a big problem for the Vikings. The Patriots snuck out a close win against the Jets. The Bills beat the Commanders 37-3 in a big blowout. The Panthers and Seahawks had a close game. Seahawks beat them 37-27. The shocker was the Cardinals beating the Cowboys. It really looks like they're really going to miss Trayvon Diggs, you know. Really sucks that he had to go down. You always want to face, especially your division rivals, at their strongest, you know. You don't want any of these sort of like asterisks, if you want to say so. It just really sucks to see him go down, and the Cowboys ended up losing this game. The Chiefs beat the Bears 41-10. Feel bad for Bears fans. They just can't get anything going. The Steelers beat the Raiders 23-18. That was a pretty surprising one to me. The Bengals snuck out a win against the Rams 19-16. And then, of course, we know what the final game is that we'll get into. But that's pretty much what the NFL was like. As far as injury report, I can't remember too many. Obviously, there was Trayvon Diggs, but definitely looking like an interesting season. You know, it's definitely making me like look into the Eagles' schedule and really analyze it differently. Like I said, you know, as you go through the season, you're gonna see teams that are, you know, a bit different than what was predicted, you know, and this is like a similar case where it's like, you know, the Bucs were doing pretty good. The Vikings, you know, are what's it called? The Rams looking forward to that game. It's like that's gonna be an interesting one, seeing the way they've been playing. Obviously, the Jets one is gonna be a lot different now that A-Rod's down. The Dolphins one could be a lot different. I think I still had that as a loss, and I still firmly believe that now. But yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff to look forward to. But getting ahead of ourselves, let's look into the good that happened with both our Philly teams. So, starting off with our Phillies, I'm not going to do a sort of game-by-game sort of breakdown. We got the final win in Atlanta. We won that series 2-1. We swept the Mets, and one of them was a walk-off, you know. We saw a great game from Christopher Sanchez. He went 7 innings, struck out 10 people. That was real good from him, you know. A lot of people are wondering if he's going to be the arm they go to in the playoffs, you know, because with the way certain other pitchers have been pitching, he's looking like a more viable option in a sense. I mean, even though he had that loss, that one loss in Atlanta, you know, he got 10 strikeouts in that one, but then it's like the next game against Atlanta that he goes against them, he only strikes out 2, lets up 3 earned runs, and only goes 4 innings compared to those 2 starts where he went 7 and struck out 10. So I think more so will likely be used in that sort of long reliever position and just give that bullpen a bit more help. A lot of people won't like to hear it, but I think Nola is likely going to be, you know, the starter as always. Like, you just hope he can pick it up in the postseason. And we saw Lorenzen doing bullpen work. That'll likely help them out as a long reliever. We could potentially see Taijuan Walker get moved into that role too. Maybe only do a 3-man pitching rotation. We don't know for sure yet. Wheeler in his outing, he went 7, struck out 6. No home run allowed in that Mets game. Very good to see. Not going into detail specifically because there's a different focus when it comes to this team. And that's obviously the playoffs are imminent. The two magic numbers are 1 to clinch a playoff berth, 2 to clinch the top wild card spot. So glad to see them on a 5-game winning streak, and we'll obviously talk more about them in the looking forward part, because there's not much bad to cover. Well, there's some bad, but like it's gonna play into the looking forward part. So moving on to the Eagles against the Bucs, I'm happy with this game. You know, especially in comparison to the previous 2 games, I'm a bit more happy here. There wasn't really anything too infuriating, you know. The first quarter was a bit infuriating because at one point they had 12 plays in enemy territory and yet only had 3 points to show for it. So that was a bit annoying, but they picked it up from there. You know, the second quarter they scored 10, third quarter they scored 9, fourth quarter they scored 3. Basically kept the game out of reach for the entirety of it. The Bucs only got a field goal in the first half, and then they scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion in the fourth quarter. But never was it a doubt in my mind that they were gonna lose this game, though. Like as soon as I started like seeing the first drives, and obviously in the first half, I was like, unless something drastic changes with Baker Mayfield, they pretty much have this locked down. Offense wise, what did you expect after last week? You know, it's common with this team where if some guy's not getting the shine, he likely gets it next week. 14 targets for A.J. Brown. He catches 9 of them for 131 yards. No touchdown. That's a part I'm upset about. Not with the fact that they didn't give him opportunities. It's the fact that I think it was like 2 or 3 times this man A.J. Brown had a touchdown opportunity and he dropped the ball. So like 3 of those targets. Yeah, 3 of those targets, if he had caught them, could have been touchdowns, you know? So it just kind of sucks that he couldn't get that touchdown. But I hope I pronounced this right. Zacchaeus, I believe. I don't know. I forget. When we were watching a place, you know, outside where they couldn't have sound for the TV for whatever reason. I forgot what the reasoning the person at the restaurant we were at said, but you know, we couldn't have sound. But he gets a big old touchdown. His first, I believe. I think as an Eagle. I don't know if it's his first in his career. Dallas Goedert also got 41 yards on 5 catches. Devontae Smith 28 on 4 catches. Pretty even, but obviously the big star was A.J. Brown, continuing to be a big star as well. 16 carries for 130 yards for DeAndre Swift. 14 carries for 43 yards for Kenneth Gainwell. The one thing I really like about this is, you know, a lot of people are saying if you use DeAndre Swift as that lead back, you're going to wear him down, the injuries and all that. He only got 16 carries, which yes was the most out of the backfield, but like that's pretty evenly split carries, and he still went off for 130 yards, longest run 29 yards. You know, that's pretty crazy to me. Jalen Hurts 28 yards on 10 attempts of rushing and a touchdown. I was telling my dad, I'm very surprised at how little they're running the ball with Hurts. Like, I don't know what it is, but at the same time, I think it has to do with like how I was saying in that Vikings game where they're just able to recognize when those running lanes are there for Hurts or not. You know, like in that Vikings game, obviously they were trying to get the run going first, and it wasn't working for Hurts. So it's like, I think they're sort of realizing that like they need to make the backfield a real viable threat in order for people to buy that, you know, we need to go after this team, you know, like or like we need to be on our toes to think who's gonna get the ball, you know. Jalen, decent game, 27 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. We'll get into the bad, but you know, decent game from him, rushing touchdown, passing touchdown. Obviously on the Bucs side of things, our defense did well. We held Baker to 146 yards. He got a touchdown, obviously, but he had the interception. The rushing attack held Rashad White, I think that's how you pronounce it, Rashad White, to 38 yards. Mike Evans only had 60 yards on the day. They targeted Mike Evans 10 times. We only let him get 5 catches. Chris Godwin only had 32 yards. So our defense did a good job, especially, you know, missing a couple key pieces. We did our best. You had Reem Blankenship with the interception. Nice to see there. He also had 6 solo tackles. I'm just going to say his first name, Marlon, got a sack on the day. Jalen Carter and Fletcher Cox both had half a sack. And Jalen Carter forced 2 fumbles. We only recovered one of them, which James Bradbury recovered. Nolan Smith had a QB hit. We're finally seeing some more reps from him. Other than that, it was a pretty decent game. We saw Sidney Brown. He had a pass defense, and it was a beauty. It was preventing Mike Evans, I think it was, or it was Chris Godwin, one of the two, preventing them from getting a touchdown. Real good stuff from the rookie. Hope to see him playing alongside Reed Blankenship more. Terrell Edmonds did pretty good too. I think our defense will always work best when we're rotating these players out. So I'm pretty happy with the defense and how they played. The kick and punting team, Britton Covey, he only had 1 return for 30 yards. So, and then the punt return team, he returned 3 for 81 yards. So he actually did pretty well. His longest was 52. He was actually doing pretty well. The radio was making notice of it. I was listening to Merrill Reese and Mike Quick, and they were making notice of that. He's getting a ton of yardage on these returns, so that's good to see that the special teams is doing well, especially Jake Elliott, 3 for 3 on field goals, and I don't think we saw any. I don't think we saw Braden Mann come out for any punts. Overall, though, real good game, but obviously there were some bads to it. So, like I said, there was some bads, but obviously it's not a lot in a game like this. Obviously, the one bad, Jalen Hurts, 2 interceptions, not what you want to see. They weren't the best throws either. I don't know. A lot of people are kind of disappointed with Jalen Hurts. I'm a little bit, but I know, similar to the Joe Burrow sort of arguments, it's it's early in the season, you got to give them time. Especially considering that both guys are coming off of injuries, funny enough, it was McNabb that broke the news that Hurts wasn't still fully healed from his injury during the playoffs last season. Probably accurate, why would you lie about something like that? But so Hurts is still, well, he's likely recovered from that, but maybe that's why we aren't seeing him rush as much, because maybe he doesn't feel as loose yet. He doesn't feel as mobile yet. So maybe that's why they're limiting his runs. They're still giving him opportunities to test it out, but maybe that's why. But yeah, the 2 interceptions aren't the best, but he still did enough. And obviously, it's not to say he's being a game manager at this point, but you don't really expect them to do much when you have the run game working as well. And he's still doing his thing in the passing yards. He got AJ Brown 131 yards. He got 277 yards on the day. He's doing pretty well for himself. And really, that's about it. Honestly, I want to look through the rest of the game and remember what I watched. But it's again, there wasn't really any bad at times. Obviously, the main thing you're gonna hear over and over until they figure it out is fixing. Well, actually, not even the linebacker thing, because what's it called? Zach Cunningham and Nicholas Morrow, they did pretty good in their spots. Josh Jobe filled in pretty well for, or actually no, I think James Bradbury was the one that was playing inside to fill in for Avonte Maddox. And Jobe let up a couple catches here or there, but he held his own. And like I mentioned, Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown did enough. There was no deep balls being thrown because they were doing enough, and obviously the defensive line was doing enough to get in Baker's face, So there isn't really a whole lot to be mad at. It's just, those 2 interceptions from Jalen. And overall, like I said, it was a real good game. Nothing to be too mad about. So how about we look forward now and see what to really expect from these two teams. So, starting off with the Phillies, like I said, it's playoff. It's the final stretch. 3 games against Pittsburgh, 3 games against the Mets. You only need 1 win to clinch the playoffs, 2 to get that top wild card spot. This stretch, you know, it's literally just asking you to win 2 out of the final 6 games, you know. And so looking forward, it's looking past these 6 games. It's looking into the playoffs. What needs to happen? The biggest one is obviously the pitching. You know, it's something we've reiterated week after week after week while covering this Phillies season. The pitching has to be better. We need Wheeler, we need Nola to be ace 1 and ace 2 like they were last year in the playoffs. Now, Nola did have his struggles in the playoffs, but don't forget how strong he started off, you know, and obviously he started going downhill after that. But, like, we need them to be as strong as possible for this upcoming stretch. And it's not only them. Like, I don't want to put the pressure on just them. It's the rest of the pitching staff, you know. Who's going to step up between Ranger, Taiwan, Christopher Sanchez, Michael Lorenzen, you know? Who's going to step up and be like, if we need a third starter or even a fourth starter, I can do it for you, you know? Because I don't think we're going to be playing Wheeler or Nola only on 2-3 days rest, you know? Like, I doubt that's going to happen. So there needs to be a third starter or even a fourth starter, you know? So who's gonna step it up? Especially because each guy sort of has their issues with it, you know? Like, you know, Taiwan walks too many guys at times, and he takes a while to really get himself settled in, and you can't have that in the playoffs. You can't let these teams jump out to leads just to let your guys settle in. Lorenzen, you know, he's lost it in a sense, and we're just waiting for him to sort of figure out what's going on, and maybe being in the bullpen will help him out. Is Ranger going to do double duty like he did last year, where he's starting pitching and also coming out the bullpen, you know? Is Sanchez a viable third option for us? I mean, we were trotting out Noah Syndergaard last year, so it can't be too bad to try out Sanchez, you know? As far as the bats go, well, actually, no, staying on the pitching, the bullpen, obviously. What are we thinking of doing for that bullpen? Is Jose Alvarado going to be a closer or Craig Kimbrell? Now, Jose Alvarado's been closing games as of late, and I think that's to give Craig Kimbrell rest for the playoffs because, you know, he was mainly our closer this entire year, and, you know, I think the reason he struggled as of late was because of the fact that, like, he was being used so often, you know? So I could see Jose Alvarado being brought in. Again, just like Taiwan, though, the issue is he kind of walks a lot of guys, you know? And a lot of times he loses his control. He loses the placement of the ball. So there's a lot to look for there. Sir Anthony Dominguez really needs to pick it up. He looks nothing like last year when him and Alvarado were our 1-2 flamethrowers out the bullpen, you know, to sort of solve this issue. Matt Strahm, Jeff Hoffman have been doing pretty good. Gregory Soto's kind of been iffy here or there. But to solve this issue, Orion Kirkering, I hope I pronounced that right, they brought him up. Probably one of the quickest ascents we've seen. I think they said he went through all 4 levels in 1 year, you know. So it's pretty crazy, and we saw him do pretty well in his first opportunity against the Mets. So hopefully he will provide some fire out the bullpen for us. Now moving on to the bats and the defense. I'm going to continue to reiterate this over and over. During this final stretch, during the playoffs, Schwarber has to stay in that DH position there, and Harper has to play first every day. You can't have none of this switching off, you know. Honestly, it's gonna sound like it's gonna sound crazy, but a part of me honestly would want Schwarber. Like if we have to put Harper at DH, I would rather Schwarber play first than play left field, you know, especially in the playoffs. Like, we need our best defensive unit out there, and that means having Rojas out there with Marsh, you know. We need the two of them out there at the same time. as far as the bats, obviously they just got to remain consistent. Nick Castellanos has been heating up. JT has been heating up. Schwarber and Harper are obviously our biggest, our big home run hitters. Trey Turner, is looking like the Trey Turner of old. He can't slow down. And then the young guys, they just have to do what they've done all season. Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, Alec Bohm. They just have to do what they've been doing all season, which has been getting on base or moving the base runners along. They've been our three. I don't even have any doubt. I know Schwarber's having one of the funniest and craziest seasons of all time when you look at his stats. But I, for my money, would say that the daycare, Bryson Stott, Alec Bohm, Brandon Marsh, even throw in Rojas in there as of late. These guys have been probably our best players. I know at times they've struggled. At times they've not played consistently. They've been taken out in certain lineups. But, you think back to all the different games and look at just how many times it was Alec Bohm or Brandon Marsh or Bryson Stott getting us some type of walk-off or, getting us, either the lead or improving the lead. These guys were the three that were doing the most. So it's they just got to do what they've been doing all season, coming up clutch, getting on base, so that these other players like Nick Castellanos, like Kyle Schwarber, that can drive them home if they're on base, or that can, basically they just need to keep doing what we've seen them do at their best throughout the season. I know that's so simple to say, but that's really all it comes down to with this team, hitting wise, And the reason I say that too, especially, is because if the pitching team is gonna struggle, then this team has to be consistent with the bats. You can't go cold. They gotta just go out there and do their best and hopefully provide a big enough lead where if pitching is not the greatest, they're still making up for it with the bats, like we were seeing in that one Angels game, even though they lost, or the Braves game, where they were going back and forth. It's you want to see more of that. You want to see more of that fight. As far as the Eagles going forward, we have the Commanders next. That should be a fun game. Should not take them lightly. They're 2-1 right now, but obviously we just saw what happened to get with them against the Bills. But obviously after last season, just don't take them lightly, please. Just go out there and do your best. Get a repeat of last year's Commanders game, the first one where they got 9 sacks. Do something crazy like that. Put up 3 touchdowns on them or something. I don't know. Just don't take them lightly. This should still be a win, and hopefully Hurts plays a bit better. You got a better matchup somewhat, but at the same time, don't rule out that defense, and don't rule out that rushing attack, man. Brian Robinson Jr., he's legit, man. And I'm not saying that just because I have him on my fantasy. He is that guy for Washington, so you have to be careful watching him, and obviously, the rest of the players that they have on that team, like Terry McLaurin, so just got to be mindful of that going forward. Still sort of dip your toes into at this point, I would say linebacker position more so than the safety position. I feel I don't know, as the season goes on, I'm feeling a bit more confident, but obviously that will come to the test against this Commanders team and the Rams team in the next couple of weeks. But with that being said, next time you'll see me next week, it'll be October. Hopefully it's Red October for the Phillies. Hopefully it's a good start for the Eagles. We'll be entering Halloween season, and nothing is more scary to NFL defenses than the Eagles lining up for a quarterback sneak.